Winter had arrived in the Ardennes, blanketing the dense forests and narrow roads with snow. German King Tiger crews, proud and confident, believed their long-range cannons made them untouchable. These behemoths of steel rolled into battle like gods of war, their thick armor reflecting any shot from standard Allied tanks. Soldiers whispered that nothing could pierce them beyond a few hundred yards. Yet deep in the cold forests, the Americans had their own secret weapon, one that could challenge this illusion of invincibility. The early days of December 1944 were quiet, almost deceptively so, as both sides prepared for the largest winter offensive the Western Front would see. German troops tightened their formations, anticipating swift breakthroughs, while American forces dug in along icy ridges, aware that the Ardennes could either protect them or become a death trap. Rumors of the King Tiger's prowess had reached every American camp, and tank crews studied intelligence reports in disbelief. Stories told of German armor that could shrug off artillery shells and make even the heaviest Sherman tanks look like toys. Yet those same reports underestimated a critical factor: the ingenuity of the American tank destroyer program. Behind the lines, engineers were readying a new machine, a vehicle that packed a punch capable of turning the myth of invincibility into a brutal reality. The M36 Jackson, armed with a massive 90mm gun, was about to make its first significant mark on the battlefield. Its high-velocity, armor-piercing rounds, designed specifically to punch through the thick steel of German heavy tanks, gave its crews a quiet confidence that contrasted with the fear that had gripped ordinary Sherman units. As snow fell silently across the Ardennes, German commanders planned their attacks, never imagining that the Americans had developed a way to hit their tanks from thousands of yards away. Each decision, each deployment of troops and armor carried the weight of unseen dangers. By mid-December, the first skirmishes revealed cracks in the German assumptions. Heavy tanks, which had once moved like unstoppable forces, began to encounter opponents that could strike with deadly precision from a distance. From the shadowed tree lines, the 90mm gun waited, its crews calculating ranges with meticulous care, ready to challenge every legend whispered about German armor. The forest echoed with tension as German tank columns advanced, confident that their armor would protect them. American soldiers held their breath, eyes scanning for any sign of movement. Then, almost silently, a shot would ring out, and one of the supposedly invincible King Tigers would stagger, its armor pierced where no one thought possible. These early strikes sent ripples of disbelief through German ranks and sparked hope among American crews. The battlefield was no longer a place dominated by myth. It was a proving ground where skill, innovation, and courage would define victory. By the time the first major battles of the Ardennes offensive erupted, the legend of untouchable German armor was already beginning to unravel. Each engagement highlighted the contrast between raw power and tactical brilliance, and the Americans were learning that with the right tools, even the mightiest tanks could be brought down. The icy wind carried the whispers of change, signaling that a new chapter in armored warfare was about to be written, one where long-range precision would redefine the rules of the game and challenge everything the Germans believed about their unstoppable machines. The M36 Jackson was not just another tank, it was America's answer to the nightmare of German heavy armor. Designed in 1943 and rushed into production in 1944, this tank destroyer carried a 90mm gun capable of punching through the thick steel of King Tigers and Panthers. Its engineers had studied the battlefield carefully, analyzing why previous American tanks struggled against Germany's most fearsome machines. They understood that speed alone could not win battles, and brute force alone was insufficient. What was needed was precision, range, and a weapon that could strike fear before the enemy even knew it was under attack. Crews were trained with exacting standards, learning to calculate range, angle, and timing under pressure. They practiced loading HVAP rounds, specialized ammunition that could pierce armor at extreme distances. Every drill, every exercise built not just skill, but confidence. By the time the M36 Jackson rolled into the Ardennes, its crews were ready to test their mettle against the legendary tanks that had dominated Europe for years. On cold, snow-covered mornings, the Jackson's silhouette blended into the white terrain. German tank commanders, used to their dominance, moved with the arrogance of certainty, unaware that a new American threat lurked in the forests and hills. Every decision they made, from route selection to engagement range, carried hidden risks. The M36 could fire from thousands of yards away, hitting targets that had once seemed invincible. This was not just a machine, it was a revolution in armored warfare, quietly turning the tide before a single shot had been fired. The first encounters were revealing. From the cover of tree lines, the Jackson crews would observe the enemy, estimating distance with meticulous care. A single shot, fired with precision, could disable a King Tiger or force it to retreat. The German crews were stunned, unable to comprehend how a seemingly small, lightly armored vehicle could deliver such destructive power. Rumors of these long-range kills began to circulate among American units, boosting morale and creating a sense of inevitability. For every King Tiger that moved confidently down a frozen road, an M36 Jackson waited, patient and precise, ready to challenge the myth of invincibility. The impact went beyond simple destruction. German tactics began to falter. Units hesitated, unsure where the next devastating shot might come from. American tank destroyers coordinated with infantry and artillery, using camouflage, terrain, and timing to maximize their advantage. Each engagement reinforced a critical lesson. Technology and preparation could overcome raw armor. The M36 was proof that innovation on the battlefield could redefine what was possible, turning fear into opportunity and reshaping strategies that had held sway for years. As December deepened, the Ardennes became a proving ground. Snow crunched under tracks, shells screamed through the air, and the M36 Jackson quietly altered the balance of power. German commanders, once confident in their superiority, began to sense that the rules of armored warfare were shifting. They were facing an enemy that had mastered long-range strikes, precision, and surprise. The Jackson was more than a weapon, it was a statement. It signaled that no tank, no matter how mighty, was untouchable, and that the Americans had found a way to fight on their terms, even against the most fearsome machines in the world. The first real test of the M36 Jackson came when the dense Ardennes forests echoed with the rumble of German tanks. King Tigers and Panthers moved confidently along icy roads, their crews certain that their armor and firepower would dominate any American resistance. Yet, hidden among the snow-laden trees, the Jacksons waited. Every commander knew that success would depend not on brute force, but on patience, timing, and a single, perfectly aimed shot. As the Germans advanced, American crews carefully calculated distance, elevation, and trajectory. The 90mm gun, paired with high-velocity armor-piercing rounds, could reach out farther than anything the Germans expected. From positions that seemed precarious and exposed, the M36 fired again and again, each shot echoing through the frozen valleys. Tanks that had once been considered invincible staggered, their armor cracked, their movements halted. The myth of untouchable German heavy armor began to crumble with every kill. The battles of the Ardennes were brutal and chaotic. Snowstorms reduced visibility, roads were clogged with vehicles, and artillery fire created a deafening, disorienting roar. Yet the M36 crews adapted, learning to use the terrain to their advantage. Elevated ridges, tree lines, and even frozen rivers became strategic positions. Each kill was not just a strike against a tank, it was a statement, demonstrating that range, precision, and tactical thinking could outweigh sheer size and firepower. German crews, once confident, began to doubt their dominance. They realized that every movement carried risk, that even at long range, American guns could find their mark. Accounts from survivors described the shock of seeing a king tiger suddenly falter, hit by a shell from a distance they believed safe. The psychological impact was as important as the physical damage. Fear spread through the ranks, hesitation replaced decisiveness, and the balance of power began to shift. Meanwhile, American commanders coordinated attacks, combining the firepower of the M36 with infantry support and artillery barrages. Communication, reconnaissance, and careful timing allowed them to exploit weaknesses in the German formations. Each engagement reinforced a crucial lesson. Heavy armor alone could no longer guarantee victory. Innovation, courage, and mastery of new technology had leveled the playing field. By the time these early skirmishes concluded, the Ardennes had transformed into a proving ground for modern armored warfare. The M36 Jackson had established itself not merely as a tank destroyer, but as a symbol of what skill, preparation, and long-range firepower could accomplish. German commanders were forced to rethink tactics, American morale soared, and the stage was set for even greater clashes. The forested hills and icy roads of the Ardennes now held a new truth. No tank, no matter how mighty, was untouchable when faced with precision, strategy, and the deadly reach of the M36 Jackson. The Ardennes offensive erupted into chaos as German forces surged forward, determined to break through the American lines. Tanks rolled along frozen roads, their engines roaring over the crunch of snow, while infantry followed, bracing for the deadly clash that would define the winter. In the midst of this turmoil, the M36 Jackson proved its worth, emerging as a decisive force capable of challenging the mightiest German armor. American crews moved with precision, using the landscape to their advantage. Ridgelines offered observation points, forests provided cover, and narrow valleys became kill zones. Each M36 was a silent predator, waiting for the right moment to strike. The first shots often came as surprises. German king tigers, confident in their armor and reputation, would suddenly lurch as a 90mm shell found a weak point, disabling engines, breaking treads, or igniting ammunition stores. The battlefield was transforming before their eyes. Tactics evolved quickly. M36 units coordinated with infantry, anti-tank guns, and artillery, creating overlapping fields of fire. Every engagement forced German commanders to reconsider strategy. They could no longer advance recklessly. Each road, each ridge could hide a tank destroyer, waiting to exploit their overconfidence. The Americans had turned long-range precision into a weapon of fear, demonstrating that the Ardennes was no longer a safe haven for even the most heavily armored vehicles. The fighting was intense, brutal, and unpredictable. Snowstorms reduced visibility to mere yards, yet Jackson crews maintained focus, calculating range and trajectory under extreme pressure. Every shot counted. Some engagements became legendary among the soldiers, single shells that disabled a king tiger from over 3,000 yards, moments that defied belief and reshaped morale on both sides. Stories of these long-range kills spread quickly, emboldening American units and sowing hesitation among the Germans. Yet the battles also exposed challenges. The M36's armor was thinner than the King Tiger's, making positioning and concealment critical. Crews had to balance aggression with caution, striking decisively while avoiding counterfire. Coordination with supporting units became essential, and adaptability determined survival. These engagements were not merely about firepower, they were tests of skill, planning, and nerve under the harshest conditions. By the end of the Ardennes offensive, the M36 Jackson had proven that heavy German tanks were no longer untouchable. Its long-range precision, combined with careful strategy and crew expertise, had leveled the battlefield. The once mythical invincibility of German armor had been shattered, replaced by a new reality. A single well-placed shot could change the outcome of a battle. The Ardennes had become a stage where innovation, courage, and determination wrote the rules, and the M36 Jackson had emerged as a symbol of how technology and tactics could overcome even the most formidable opponents. The snow of the Ardennes had begun to melt, leaving behind a battlefield scarred with tracks, wrecked tanks, and frozen reminders of one of the fiercest winter offensives in history. The M36 Jackson had proven itself not just as a weapon, but as a game-changer in armored warfare. German King Tigers and Panthers, once feared as invincible, now lay disabled or destroyed, their crews forced to reconsider everything they had believed about heavy armor. American commanders analyzed the aftermath with satisfaction. The lessons were clear. Range, precision, and tactical coordination could outweigh brute force, and technological innovation could redefine the rules of engagement. The Jackson's 90mm gun had consistently demonstrated the ability to strike from distances previously thought impossible, delivering devastating results against the most formidable tanks of the German army. Crews who had trained relentlessly now saw the fruits of their preparation, realizing that every careful calculation and every well-timed shot had tangible impact on the outcome of battle. The psychological effect on both sides was profound. German tank crews, once brimming with confidence, approached each engagement with caution and doubt. The aura of invincibility that had surrounded their armor was shattered. For American soldiers, morale soared. They had witnessed firsthand that strategy, skill, and innovation could overcome fearsome opponents. Stories of M36 kills from thousands of yards away became legendary, spreading through the ranks and inspiring new confidence in the effectiveness of American armored forces. The legacy of the M36 Jackson endured beyond the Ardennes. Its performance forced military planners to reconsider armored tactics and tank development. The idea that a single, well-engineered tank destroyer could neutralize heavy armor influenced post-war designs and doctrines. Lessons learned in the forests and hills of Belgium would shape armored warfare for decades, proving that mobility, firepower, and crew expertise could defeat even the most daunting threats. In the end, the M36 Jackson was more than a weapon. It was a statement. It proved that preparation, skill, and the willingness to challenge assumptions could triumph over even the most formidable enemies. The Ardennes had become a testament to American determination and ingenuity, and the legacy of the Jackson endured as a reminder that no myth of invincibility could withstand the combination of courage, technology, and human resolve.